Where we're standing now in the middle of this laneway, it was reserved when the new subdivision was registered so that they could bring cattle from the farm down. The end of the previous farm had been the stone wall we're looking at, and they were reserved just to continue that particular laneway.
Right down to the water?
Right to the water. Now, subsequently, they didn't need to do that. They had a very large watering, what would you call it? I don't know. A tank, except it was open at the top. Trough. A large trough to water their cattle up there.
Huh.
Was it Mr. Burnell that had the cattle?
Well, originally it was Burnell's farm. I think he may have got it as a Crown grant. I've never checked back. Then his son, Rupert Burnell, the old man was Richard. Rupert Burnell farmed it for a couple of years, but he wasn't a farmer. And then it was farmed by Will Avery, who was Burnell's son-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
Then he gave it up when he got into the golf course business.
Right.
Now, when Grandfather came up to build the cottage, his cottage, Dad needed someplace to stay. He and a journeyman carpenter, who was his neighbor in Toronto, and he brought him up to help him. Anyway, they stayed at the farm, and they were the first paying visitors, I guess, that the farm had, and subsequently went into the tourist business for quite a while.
So we can take credit for establishing some tourism on the Cameron Lake.
That's right. It was ended up basically as a dairy farm, and then Will Avery got into the dairy business and delivered milk to all the grove.
What happened after that? All I remember is hockey school.
Well, backing up first, was it Mr. Avery that built the golf course, or did Mr. Burnell?
Oh, Avery.
Mr. Avery did the golf course.
Well, Burnell in 1922 when he was in his 70s.
Yes.
He was an old man, quite crippled. He walked with a cane.
Right.
There was Richard Burnell, his brother, and his brother-in-law, Avery. That was a three-man team, plus one horse and a buggy and a wagon. Now, I say that now because later on, where we come down further, it was all swamp. And it was filled in by this single horse drawing sand from over Buckenshare's farm.
I well remember Mr. Avery, who preferred to be called Gampy, telling me about bringing in loads by horse and wagon, some of the laborious tasks of loading or unloading or clearing rocks or whatever they did, but he certainly, up until his death, had a very keen memory and recalled many of these things.
Are you talking of Will Avery?
Yes, Gampy Avery.
Will Avery.
Yes.
That's the son.
That
That's
is
the farmer.
the son. Thank you.
I'm talking about his father.
All right.
Who worked with Richard Burnell.
All right.
And when I remember them, they were all three of them were old men.
Yes.
So, now we come to the first cottage of the new subdivision. Now, for some reason, it's numbered Lot 2. I think the previous two cottages might have been number 1. Anyway, it was Emily Smith, a retired school teacher, whose cottage this was. And I think she bought the property either in late 22 or early 23, because this cottage was built in 1923. And there was nothing between here and Fern Cottage, except swamp and everything else. Now, do you want a close-up shot of this picture, this cottage?
I think I got it.
You got it?
Yeah.
I forget whether I said up above, this was built in 23 for Miss Smith, a retired school teacher. And she had her nephews, and mostly nephews, some nieces, to spend the summer with her. Toby Lucas, one of her nephews, he was my best friend for years and years up here. His father was a stonemason, built that beautiful fireplace, and what I believe to be a beautiful stone wall across the front.
Yeah.
He never quite finished.
Getting now going.
Maybe somebody else did finish it. It didn't for long. Now, this cottage and Fern Cottage for Kinsingers were built before the survey was completed of the subdivision.
Oh.
And, well, you took your chances that you were going to have it on the right property. It turned out to be wrong in the Kinsinger case. There was nothing between here and Kinsinger. You could not walk along here. It was so swampy. To go from one to the other, you had to go back behind through the fields. Okay? What is now McNabb's cottage was built on 2 lots that were reserved to Burnell in the survey. And there was there for years and years a dilapidated cottage that they used to rent occasionally. Then it was all chopped up to make a lot of more bedrooms for the sports camp. Long since now demolished. Looking at the Gerd cottage, was originally built by or for Dick Hanna. Actually built by Burnell for Dick Hanna, an insurance agent in Toronto. He had a couple of daughters that weren't interested in it and ended up selling it to McNairn, subsequently from McNairn to Gerd. There were a number of additions to the cottage from its original. It had no running water, of course, and no septic tank, anything like that, as did any of these cottages. And we purchased the laneway, which was another reservation to water cattle under the survey. The original building here was for newlyweds and comprised a kitchen, a living room, and 1 bedroom. They planned to eat all their meals out, and that didn't work out for very long until they had the first child and the second and had to add 2 bedrooms, and they weren't properly laid out. What ended up to be the room had been a garage, remembering that the access to all these places was through the field behind.
Okay.
Yeah,
Let's just walk down
I
the
don't
next
know
one.
what else I can talk about there in that one.
That's fine.
That cottage was built in
Hi, Ted.
1924-25.
Tell us about your place.
Yeah, this was the first cottage that we had, and we bought it in 1946. An amazing price, $1,000. I'm sorry, $1,500. The woman had it for a mortgage for $1,000. Anyway, after we bought it, we took everything out of the inside, all the partitions, and left one great big room. Put it back together the way it is today. The original fireplace is there, although I did put a new front on it. Then we have added the bathroom, eating porch, bathtub, I guess. Yeah, originally there was no bath. We had an outside toilet. So that's the way you see it today. That was 46. Then our neighbors were Jordan's. He was ill for a long time. The second wife disliked cottages completely. Her idea of vacation was to go to Atlantic City.
Before the days of gambling.
Well, walk on the boardwalk, I think that's what she liked doing. Anyway, he was quite ill, and we said to her, May, if anything happens to Bill and this comes up for sale, would you let us know? That was exactly what she did do.
I had to.
That's exactly what she did do. I made a deal with her in Toronto, drove up from Alpena, that's where I was at the time. And she wanted basically nothing out of the cottage. There were 3 little things we were to bring. I forget what they were. One of them was a cribbage board that had some sentimental value, and the other 2 were light things. So that's where we started with it. It was, we thought, too good to bulldoze, and yet not good enough to spend a lot of money on. So it took us quite a number of years before we decided to go ahead with what we have done. We could not get a permit to build a brand new place, so we have to start with some of the original and add and demolish and add some more.
And that purchase was about, what, 1970?
1965.
65.
And prices have gone up a little bit. That was $5,000 odd. And it was as bad or worse shape than this one.
Mm-hmm.
This one built in 1924 and rented every year until we got it in 46. I used to know a lot of the people that rented it. One particular family were very interesting. He was a missionary on furlough from Formosa, and he had a couple of kids my age. So we used to build kites. These kids, from their Japanese background, could build a kite. I would do exactly the same thing. Theirs would go to the sky as long as there was any string left. Mine wouldn't get off the ground. So we go back and look at this other one for a moment.
Okay.
My background was always financial, and when I retired, I wanted to do some building. So here was my opportunity. And except for a hole dug in the rear and an electrician to bring in a new service, the rest of the work in here is mine. And it was hard work, but it was a thrill. To design it and then see it go together.
Right.
We demolished all the rear of the cottage, converted the bedroom and bathroom, bedroom and living room put together. The kitchen remains, that's all that remains of the original house. The bedroom is now part of the living room. Added a couple of years ago a large eating porch off the kitchen. So we ended up with 3 good-sized bedrooms and a full 4-piece bath. Mm-hmm. We were fortunate enough, this is, I guess, time flies, it's probably 8-10 years ago, we were able to buy another 90 feet behind the cottage, as well as a 20-foot lane adjoining. So all the cottages along here bought 90 feet, all of them, one, the next 2. So that made 4 plus the lane 90 feet back. And then the lane Wallace, then she bought 40 feet at the rear and 40 feet at the side to protect anybody getting close to her.